I remember as I ran to the kitchen, I ended up seeing my babysitter throwing knives at her boyfriend. Like, what? A knife? Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. Now, I remember this story all starts off back when I was in grade 6. And in grade 6, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was not a naughty boy, but at the same time, I would not listen to nobody. And I remember the only thing I cared about at this time was playing video games and just, I don't know, anything else really. Like, I really did not care about school. I just cared about playing video games and just hanging out and just doing my own thing. And also Pokemon. I love Pokemon. But going on with the story, I remember my grade 6 year, there was one friend that I had that was really close friends with me. And I remember me and him, we both loved playing video games. And I remember there was one time on a Friday where I told him, yo, bro, I was just wondering, do you want to maybe have like a sleepover this weekend? Yeah, sure. I'll come over to your sleepover, is what he said afterwards. And I remember basically on Friday that day after school, me and him, we ended up walking back to my house together and we ended up seeing my parents packing. We didn't know what they were packing for. And I remember me and my buddy, we ended up walking up to my parents and I ended up asking them, Mom, Dad, where are you guys going? Oh, Bubba, we're going on a quick little emergency that is happening and we have to take a quick trip. So we won't be here, but I didn't know you were having a friend over. Yeah, I invited him over. Is that cool, Mom? Yes, it's fine. It just means you can't come with us to the little vacation I guess we're having. But you know what? We'll quickly invite a babysitter to take care of you guys. At that point, me and my friend were cool with that because we didn't really care about babysitters. Like, you know, it was grade 6. Like, we didn't really have any problem with it because we understood that we were too young to be alone at a house. And I remember me and my friend, we ended up going up to my bedroom and we just instantly started playing Xbox and started playing Call of Duty together. But as me and him were playing Call of Duty, out of nowhere, I want to say like an hour later, we ended up hearing a knock on the door. At that point, my friend looks at me saying, Bubba, is that the babysitter? Should we go answer that? No, don't worry about it, bro. I think my mom will take it, is what I said. And my mom ended up going answering the door, acting all happy and stuff, saying, oh, perfect, you're here. Welcome, welcome. Bubba, can you come downstairs real quick? At that point, me and my friend, we ended up going downstairs and we ended up seeing the babysitter and we actually met her. Now, this babysitter, she was apparently some college student that was, well, planning to soon travel across Canada for some reason. I don't really know why. I thought that was only a Terry Fox thing, but I guess she wants to do it too. And I remember basically she ended up looking at me and my friend and she ended up kneeling down saying, okay, boys, so I just have a couple rules. 1, just make sure to listen to me. I'm very reasonable. And 2, please just don't question me. Okay, is what we both said. We don't know why she said this, by the way. I guess, like, you know, she maybe thought we were naughty kids when in reality we were just 2 kids that enjoyed playing video games. But sure, whatever she wanted is what we basically made sure she understood. After that whole thing of me meeting at the babysitter with my friend, I ended up going up to my parents and we ended up saying goodbye to them and they ended up getting in their cars and driving away. And right as me and my friend walked back inside, I remember the babysitter looks at both of us and says, okay, boys, so want to get dinner ready? I remember me and my friend, we looked at each other and we said, sure, why not? And we ended up going to the kitchen. We sat down and started eating. Luckily, this babysitter made one of my favorite meals, which was grilled cheese. I love grilled cheese sandwiches. They're my favorite food ever, aside from mac and cheese. But still, grilled cheese is also really good. I remember me and my friend ate, and one thing led to another. Me and my friend, we decided to go watch TV in the living room since we knew the parents were gone. And the reason I say because my parents were gone was because I wanted to watch a show that my parents would not let me watch, because back when I was younger, my parents would never let me watch Family Guy because there was too many Devil's Tango jokes in the show. But obviously, since they were gone and my babysitter didn't know that rule, obviously me and my friend were gonna watch it. So I remember me and my friend, we were sitting down watching the show, and I remember around 7:30, the babysitter ended up walking up to me, my friend. She ended up turning off the TV saying, okay, boys, it's time for bed. What is what we said? Because it was 7:30. Like, why would we go to bed so early? Usually my parents would make me go to sleep around like 8:30, 9, even sometimes 11 on the weekend, like it was. But obviously the babysitter ended up opening her eyes wider and she basically made the message very clear that she wanted us to go upstairs. But as she was staring at us, she said, listen guys, just go upstairs. I won't check on you. You guys can do whatever you want, but just get ready for bed. At that point, me and my friend, we ended up going up the stairs and we basically sat down and we basically started playing Call of Duty on my TV that was in my bedroom. But one thing was really puzzling to me though was why would the babysitter tell us to basically go to bed, but at the same time not check in on us to make sure we were actually sleeping? Like, why did she want us to basically go into my room? I want to say 2 hours went by and out of nowhere, my buddy ends up looking at me and he notices something outside my window. He walks up to my window and looks at my driveway and says, are your parents supposed to be back home this early? No, why? Well, there's someone parking in your driveway. I remember I ended up walking up to my window and I saw that there was actually some person parking in my driveway that wasn't my parents' car. And me thinking that this car probably found the wrong house, I remember my friend ends up looking looking at me saying, wait, Bubba, are we getting robbed? You might be getting robbed right now. Your house is a target. No, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm going to go downstairs real quick, warn the babysitter, and just check in on everything. I remember I ended up walking out of my bedroom door, and I quickly went downstairs to quickly see what was going on. But right as I went on the final step of my stairwell, I ended up seeing my babysitter run up to the door and open it wide open for these people that were about to enter my house. Obviously, me, I didn't want to basically get caught being out of my room from this babysitter because who knows what a babysitter could do. And I basically ended up hiding behind a plant that my mom loves so much that she put in the front of the house near the entrance. As I was hiding behind the plant, I remember I saw these two guys walk in, and one of the guys ended up looking at my babysitter, walking up to her, and they started making out right in front of me. As for the other guy, well, he ended up actually just straight up leaving out of nowhere and walking home, I guess. I didn't really recognize the guy that ended up going to walk home, nor did I recognize the guy that was literally making out with my babysitter right in front of me. But I knew at that moment that I was gonna be in serious trouble because obviously I don't think my parents would want me to have my babysitter's boyfriend over. I want to say it was her boyfriend, but at the same time, who knows? Like, it could be just a friends with benefits. I really don't know, nor do I care. All I knew was that there was a random dude in my house and this babysitter was smooching him. But at that point, I waited behind the plant until my babysitter and her boyfriend ended up going to the living room and sitting on the couch, and I sprinted upstairs right after and went into my bedroom. When I went inside my bedroom, I looked over at my buddy and said, okay, so I have good news. We're not getting robbed, but there's a guy in my house that's apparently making out with the babysitter. I remember at that point, my friend just looks at me questioning what in the world's going on in this household and what is happening. And me, I was as confused as he was. So me and my friend, we decided to go downstairs together and see who this guy really was and what was happening downstairs and why would he come over to my house of all things. And as me and my friend were slowly going down the stairs, I remember we ended up sitting on one of the steps and we ended up looking through the railing and we saw that my babysitter and this dude were doing the devil's tango on the couch in my living room. Like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to sanitize that thing with bleach. You know, I gotta spray that thing down. I gotta maybe even sell it because this guy was definitely disgusting. But right as I thought things couldn't get worse, out of nowhere, I ended up basically hearing a vibrating noise. And I thought it was my phone originally, but apparently it wasn't, because as I'm looking at me and my friend thinking it was one of our phones, we started to realize that it was one of the phones that was in my babysitter's boyfriend's pocket. Now at this point, I was really confused and I thought, you know, are they gonna notice it or are they just gonna keep doing the devil's tango? But then obviously it got to the point where I guess the guy noticed that his phone was vibrating and he ended up walking up to his jacket, not wearing anything, by the way. Like, his full-on eggplant was out, and when he went to answer the phone, he answered it saying, oh, hey babe, what's up? And at that point, I remember my babysitter stood up right away with her cherries out, not wearing anything, off the couch, and started screaming and yelling in this irritating voice at this boy that was on the phone with his actual girlfriend. Like, bro, I had no idea what was going on, and this was a full-on show for me and my buddy that were just sitting on the stairwell. But I am not joking, we started panicking because I remember this babysitter started yelling, screaming, and being way too loud, to the point where I remember this girl decided to go absolutely crazy and went to the kitchen, ended up grabbing a bunch of knives and started throwing it at this guy. At this point, we started freaking out, and I remember my buddy ended up pulling out his phone and calling 911 because this babysitter was legit throwing knives at this guy that none of us knew who he was, to be honest. And one thing led to another. Cop sirens ended up coming in, and basically they ended up arresting my babysitter. The cop ended up walking up to me, my friend, afterwards saying, son, I'm gonna need you to call your parents. They need to come back home right away if that's possible. And well, the cops ended up calling my parents, and well, let's just say I didn't get in trouble, luckily, but this psycho babysitter was going to jail. Honestly, if you guys don't want this happen to you, my suggestion is just follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys. Okay, so there's a lot of things that babysitters do to take care of, like, you know, the person they're watching. But I gotta say, what this one babysitter ended up doing was extremely illegal. And it got to the point where it actually got really naughty. But obviously, before we get into this story, make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do this, and it means I can tell more crazy stories like this one on here. So just press the subscribe button if you want more story time. But other than that, let's just jump straight into today's embarrassing story. story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a really embarrassing video. So today's story all starts off back when I was actually in grade 8. Yeah, it was my year of ending middle school, and I was just getting out of middle school. But obviously, one time when I ended up coming home, I ended up seeing that my parents were actually packing the car up for a trip where they were going to head to the US of A. If you guys don't know, I have family that live down in the United States, and I remember basically I was never able to go because I always ended up having schoolwork to do, or I either had sports, or let's just say I would always have a reason not to go. And as much as I wanted to go to the States, my parents wouldn't let me because, well, they wanted me to be a good student. And obviously, me being a good student wasn't obviously a thing. So one thing that they would always do is hire a babysitter. So I remember as my parents were packing the car, my mom ended up walking up to me saying, "We got you a babysitter. She's gonna be here any minute. She's gonna be here for only 2 days. So don't worry, you'll be a-okay." Wait, mom, are you serious? A babysitter? Come on. I don't need a babysitter. I'm in grade 8. I'm almost done middle school. I'm gonna be a high schooler. Bubba, that's no excuse. You need a babysitter. Whatever, mom. And at that point, I ended up going upstairs to my room, doing my homework, and then playing some Call of Duty. I remember 10 minutes went by, and then I ended up hearing a knock on the door. And when I heard the knock on the door, I ended up answering it, and I saw it was a babysitter. But this babysitter wasn't any ordinary babysitter, because this babysitter ended up coming in, and she was some high schooler that was like, I want to say like 17 turning 18. And she ended up, funny enough, having a briefcase with her that looked like there was a lot of valuable stuff in it. Like, I'm not joking. She was holding like one of those silver briefcases that people would usually put like tons of money in. I remember I looked at her and I ended up telling her, I have a question. Is that all your stuff that you brought to my house for the night? Oh yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna make sure I take extra good care of you. I ended up looking at her kind of in fear, but at the same time, I was in grade 8 and I was just hoping that this babysitter would do her thing and I would do my thing. So I ended up just going upstairs and playing video games. Now, this is where the story gets a little weird, because I remember as I was in my room playing video games, I remember I ended up coming downstairs for a quick bite to eat because I ended up getting hungry after playing so much Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and I ended up seeing my babysitter on a ladder basically putting something in the kitchen. Now, she wasn't putting plates away, she wasn't cleaning anything, she was just trying to set something up on top of the kitchen counter, and I ended up looking at her saying, "What are you doing?" She instantly turns around and says, "Oh, nothing. I'm just making sure everything's like, you know, ship shape in here. What do you need?" "Oh, I'm just hungry." "Oh, then let me feed you, little boy." Yeah, she called me little boy. I can't believe it either. But anyways, after she ended up feeding me, I remember she ended up asking me which one was my room. I ended up telling her, "Oh, my room's like upstairs to the left," and she instantly decided to go upstairs right away, right as I said that. I didn't know what she was doing in my room, but honestly, I remember when she went upstairs so quickly though, I was a little worried because I was wondering why in this world is this babysitter going in my room. So I ended up basically going upstairs literally right after I finished eating, and I saw that she was putting something in my room. Now, I didn't know what she was putting, and every time I would ask her, she instantly would just turn around and say, "Nothing, I was just checking your room. This is a really cool desk and gaming setup you have. Okay, I'm gonna go downstairs now." And she ended up going downstairs. I ended up following her downstairs, asking her a bunch of questions like, "Hey, is everything okay? Is there anything you need to talk about?" Because she was acting really, really weird. And then that's when this babysitter ended up going into this briefcase and pulling out an iPad. And this iPad was no normal Apple iPad. Like, she was pulling out some weird like Sony professional iPad. And she ended up looking at me saying, "Oh, don't worry. I'm gonna make sure you're gonna be a-okay." I remember she ended up looking at me with her eyes wide open as if she was some crazy lady, and I was just kind of in fear. I ended up looking at her saying, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna be in my room." "Oh, okay, that sounds fine to me." And she ended up going to the living room, sitting down, turning on my TV, and then she ended up basically just staring at her iPad as she was watching TV. I remember I was watching her for like a good 2 minutes as she was sitting on my couch using my TV, and she looks at the iPad saying, "Bubba, I see you're still there. You can leave now." At that point, I ended up going upstairs and I ended up going to my room and basically just sitting on my bed thinking, what in the world was she doing? And at this moment, I honestly had this like gut feeling in my stomach that I was being watched. Now, obviously I was being watched because I had a babysitter, but I had like a more gut feeling like she was always watching. And this gave me a giant scare. I remember it got pretty late at night and she ended up feeding me and she was doing her normal babysitting duties. But then I remember as I was in my room laying down for bed, I remember she ended up coming into my room saying, Bubba, do you need to get tucked in or are you good? I'm in grade 8. I'm pretty sure I'm good, but thanks. Okay, well, I'm just gonna be downstairs. Tell me if you need anything. Okay. And right as I say that, she ended up going downstairs and basically ended up watching TV again. Me, I ended up sitting in my room, and for some reason I couldn't sleep. I just kept looking around my room and I felt like something was off. And usually at this time, since I was in grade 8 and I felt like something was off, I decided to do the one thing that was really normal between all teenagers, and that was beat my eggplant. So I remember I decided to whip out my eggplant. I ended up getting my lotion, you know, doing the whole tradition that most people have, or most guys I should say have. And right at that moment, as I was about to beat my eggplant, my babysitter walks into the room and says, Baba, what are you doing? You should be asleep right now. I ended up looking at her and I'm like, and I ended up having my eggplant in my hand, and she's just staring at me as I'm like holding it, and I'm like, can I get some privacy? Bubba, if you're gonna do that, at least let me help you out with that. I remember she ends up actually coming up to me, and me and her, we actually ended up doing the Devil's Tango out of nowhere. It was the most craziest thing ever, and it was like she was preparing this whole night to do that singular thing. I remember after we did the Devil's Tango, I ended up asking her, like, you know, how did she find out that, like, you know, I was, you know, gonna beat my eggplant? And she told me that she put a camera in my room, and she told me the way she watches over people when she's babysitting is that she puts cameras everywhere. So apparently this whole time she put cameras in my room, in the bathroom, in the kitchen, and she always just knew where I was. I gotta say, even though I got to do the Devil's Tango, what this girl did was extremely illegal, but hey, at the same time, my parents only hired her once. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's embarrassing story. Make sure you guys press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.